Welcome to the Vintage Hollywood Archive. With his tiny physique, soft voice, and lovely, round boyish face, Audie Murphy's gentle demeanor was hardly the stereotypical image of a combat hero or a Western movie star. But Audie was exactly that, brave, bold, and tough, but with a humble heart. Audie Murphy, from cotton worker to Hollywood star. Make sure to watch the video until the end, and if you are new here, don't forget to join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Vintage Hollywood Archive. Audie Murphy, how a war hero became a Western hero. The incredible story of an American soldier. Audie Leon Murphy was a legend of his time, a war hero, a movie actor, a country Western songwriter, and a poet. His autobiography reads more like a work of fiction than a work of fact. He barely lived for 46 years, but he left an indelible mark on American history. He used to chop cotton for $1 a day as a kid and was known for his daring deeds and rifle accuracy. He only had 5 years of formal education and was orphaned at the age of 16. He enlisted in the U.S. Army after being rejected recruitment by the Marines and the paratroopers because he was too short, 5'5", and underweight, 110 pounds. A few days after his 18th birthday, he joined the Army. Audie traveled overseas after completing basic training at Camp Walters in Texas and advanced training at Fort Meade in Maryland. In North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany, he served with the famed 15th Infantry. For his bravery and skill to command on the battlefield, he was awarded a Battlefield Commission. Audie served on the front lines for 400 days, earning 33 military awards, citations, and decorations, including every American Medal of Valor, as well as 3 French and 1 Belgian medal. Lieutenant Audie Murphy was the most decorated soldier in the history of the United States. In 1945, a fighter turned into a Hollywood actor, and for the rest of his life, he was closely involved with the film industry, both as an actor and as a producer. He demonstrated his acting and producing abilities by appearing in 44 films during his career, including one based on his best-selling autobiography, To Hell and Back. During his rise to fame, Murphy met and married Wanda Hendricks, a 21-year-old actress, in 1949, and after their divorce, Pamela Archer entered his life. The father of 2 sons, Murphy suffered from insomnia and nightmares, a condition that would eventually become known as post-traumatic stress disorder. He also had a powerful addiction to sleeping pills, and what he went through in his later years is even worse. When he died in a plane crash on May 28, 1971, he was in financial ruin and had wasted all his fortune. If you want to know how, then keep watching this video. We're going to take a look at the incredible journey of a war hero who turns into a Western hero. Heroes are not always heroes by birth. They struggle to become one. Prior to World War II and Hollywood, Murphy's life was one of poverty and neglect. He took up responsibilities as a young boy that would have been too much for adults twice his age. Audie Leon Murphy was born on June 20, 1924, in Kingston, Texas, to sharecropper Emmett Barry Murphy and Josie Bell Killian. He was the 7th of 12 children. Audie was a shy loner as a child, prone to outbursts of rage and extreme mood swings. His father came and went in and out of their lives, eventually abandoning them completely. Audie dropped out of school when he was 10 years old, a 5th grader, to help support his mother and siblings. He picked cotton for a living, earning $1 per day. The money was helpful, but feeding 11 brothers and sisters as well as his mother was difficult. Audie learned to hunt in order to put food on the table. He had no idea that his rifle proficiency would come in handy when the rumblings of a war drew him to the front lines. As the war in Europe progressed, he kept up with the news and yearned to join the fight, but tragedy was about to hit far closer to home. Audie worked incredibly hard to provide for his family, and he was devoted to his mother, Josie Bell. His loving mother died of pneumonia and heart failure in 1941. An elder married sister couldn't care for all the children. Audie was heartbroken when he watched 3 of his younger siblings being moved from the Murphy family and placed in a Christian orphanage. The others, who were old enough to be independent, went their separate ways. Audie's grief over the death of his mother was so intense that it troubled him for the rest of his life. Now on his own, Audie moved into a boarding house and found work at a radio repair shop and a gas station that doubled as a general store. But he still dreamed of getting into the action overseas. He was more determined than ever to join the Marines when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, but he didn't match their weight and height criteria. Neither the paratroopers nor the Navy thought he was combat ready. He reluctantly decided to enlist in the United States Army, despite the fact that he was underage and would have been turned away even if he had a birth certificate. Desperate, he convinced his older sister to sign an affidavit claiming he was a year older than he was, and he was soon off to boot camp, but with the goal of moving to a more prominent branch of the military. He aspired to become a glider pilot in the future. Any concept that the US Army was beneath him or that it was the easy way out was quickly dispelled. He passed out cold during his very first close-order drill exercise. As if that wasn't humiliating enough, he was given the label baby right away, and his commanding officer volunteered to send Audie to train as a cook rather than a combat soldier in the hopes of avoiding more embarrassment. Audie remained stubborn, and his CO eventually relented, allowing him to keep his combat classification. Audie proved to be a brave, fierce, and strategic thinker, a skilled sharpshooter, and a born leader, so it was the best decision CO made. Don't let that baby face fool you. That's the toughest soldier in the 3rd Division, one of his fellow US Army officers stated of Murphy. Indeed, he fought bravely, often putting himself in risky situations and attracting fire in order to save his men. Audie's forces were attacked by the Germans on January 26, 1945 in eastern France. 6 tanks and 250 enemy infantry advanced with all their firepower, vastly outnumbered them. Audie sent his soldiers back to regroup and strengthen their defenses until reinforcements arrived. As the Germans approached, it was clear that they wouldn't be able to hold their position for long. Audie walked into a neighboring abandoned tank that was on fire on his own, despite suffering a leg wound, and manned the machine gun for about an hour, firing on hostiles attacking him from 3 directions. He was able to halt their progress, allowing his forces to launch a counterattack that forced the Germans to flee. Lieutenant Murphy was wounded 3 times in battle and received 28 medals by the end of World War II, including the Medal of Honor and 3 Purple Hearts, as well as 3 medals from France and 1 from Belgium. Audie Murphy was still a minor when the triumph was announced, as he had not yet turned 21. The battle forced him to face awful scenarios that required split-second life-or-death decisions, which he made with heroism and intelligence much above his years. But the experience had an effect on him. He battled his own inner demons for the rest of his life, suffering from nightmares, insomnia, and despair, all of which are symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. He once said that he couldn't sleep unless he had a loaded rifle beneath his pillow. He was appropriately hailed as a hero upon his return to the United States, wined and dined, and parades were held in his honor. He was the triumphant conqueror symbol. Though he may be abrasive in other areas of life, he was always courteous and humble when it came to the military and his involvement in World War II. Audie was discharged from the Army as an active soldier on September 21, 1945, and reassigned to inactive status. Actor James Cagney welcomed Murphy to Hollywood in September 1945, after seeing a baby-faced Murphy on the cover of Life magazine at the time. He only had nice looks and a willingness to give it a chance when he landed in California. Audie's new career was practically stalled, despite the fact that James Cagney's production firm paid for acting and dancing training for him. He signed a contract with Cagney for $150 a week, but had yet to be cast in a single picture. Audie's contract was terminated in 1947 due to a disagreement with Cagney's brother William, who was also a co-owner of the film company. Audie rented a room at Terry Hunt's athletic club and lived on his army pension of $113 per week, cut loose and on his own in a town where careers were made on coveted contracts and who you knew, and destroyed by gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Audie had always been a warrior, and he wasn't ready to give up now. He didn't have the inner calling or flashes of brilliance that many great stars have from a young age, but he did have one thing: persistence. In 1948, he met writer David Macleod, who helped him land a small part in the films Texas, Brooklyn, and Heaven, and the agent of Audie's then-girlfriend, actress Wanda Hendricks, landed him a small part in the film Beyond Glory, starring Alan Ladd. Things were starting to look up. Despite the production company president's concerns about Audie's lack of expertise, he won his first starting part in Bad Boys in 1949. Audie and Wanda married the same year, although their union was stormy due to Audie's chronic PTSD difficulties. In 1951, they divorced. Despite the difficulties at home, Murphy eventually signed a contract with Universal Studios in 1950, and during the next 15 years he acted in 26 films, 23 of which were westerns. Audie played Billy the Kid in The Kid from Texas, which was his first feature for Universal. In Kansas Raiders, he played Jesse James, and in Sierra, he played Ring Hassard, an outlaw's son, opposite his wife. Audie and Wanda had already broken up at the time Sierra was published. Audie married airline stewardess Pamela Archer just 4 days after his divorce from Wanda. Terry and James were their 2 sons. To Hell and Back, Murphy's autobiography was released in 1949. The book rapidly became a national bestseller, and he decided to play himself in the film adaptation of his book in 1955, after considerable internal debate. To Hell and Back kept the record for being Universal's highest-grossing film until 1975, when it was ultimately surpassed by Jaws. In the mid-1960s, studios began to hire actors on a picture-by-picture basis, rather than on a contract basis. As a result, Universal did not renew its contract when it expired in 1965. As a result, he was able to collaborate with other studios and independent film producers. Audie made a total of 44 feature films during his 25 years in Hollywood. Audie also starred in Whispering Smith, a 26-episode Western television series that aired on NBC in 1961. Although the series received positive reviews, it was also criticized for being excessively violent. The series lasted only 20 episodes before being cancelled. The incredible war hero had transformed into an incredible Western film star. He'd evolved into an actor, writer, and songwriter, and he'd come a long way from his hometown of Kingston, Texas. Audie began his life in poverty and, ultimately, would conclude it in poverty. Despite his Hollywood fame, Audie never forgot his Texas roots. He visited Dallas on a regular basis, where he once owned a small ranch. He also had ranches near Tucson, Arizona, and Perris, California. He was a prominent thoroughbred and quarter-horse racehorse owner and breeder, with horses like Depth Charge in his stable. In his 23 years as an actor, he made about $3 million from his films. Audie was a big gambler who bet on horses and many sporting events. He was a fantastic poker player as well. He made and lost millions as a voracious gambler. Making matters worse, he had built up a huge gambling debt. Complicating things further, the IRS came knocking for unpaid taxes. In 1968, he declared bankruptcy. Despite his poor financial circumstances, he refused to make a quick buck by appearing in cigarette or alcohol advertising, arguing that doing so would have a negative impact on the country's youth. His societal concerns included veterans' issues. He was an outspoken supporter of Vietnam War veterans. He urged the government for resources to help returning service members cope with psychological challenges as they transitioned to life at home after the battle, a condition that he had direct experience with. The man who faced death and won as he stood atop a burning tank, single-handedly fending off enemy troops, met his end by accident. Audie Murphy died on May 18, 1971, when his own jet crashed in the hills outside Roanoke, Virginia, due to foggy weather. He was 46 years old at the time. Audie was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. His gravestone, at his wish, was unadorned, like that of any soldier, rather than the gold leaf-encrusted stone that would be suitable for a Medal of Honor recipient like himself. He left behind his wife Pamela and sons Terry and James. But the story of Audie Murphy didn't end with his death. His wife Pamela made certain that her beloved husband's name was not tarnished by rumors of his financial decline, even after his variety of films and incredible life story. Despite her poverty, she was determined to repay Audie's debts, so she did so, to the penny. She discovered the ideal method to honor his legacy by continuing his dedication to veterans through her activities. Pamela kept her identity a secret, but when veterans discovered she was the wife of a war hero named Audie Murphy, many showed compassion, which she acknowledged. She worked for the Veterans Administration until she was 87 years old. Pamela Murphy died in 2010 at the age of 90, still living in the little apartment she acquired after Audie's death. Despite Murphy's remarkable services in World War II and amazing career in Hollywood, his image could be harmed due to his wrong financial decisions. Luckily, his loyal wife didn't let it happen and paid all his debts even after his death. He remained loyal to his nation and he got that loyalty in return. Isn't that something every hero deserves? Audie Murphy's remarkable service in the war were truly unforgettable, but he was not the only one who tried his best. You may wonder how Hedy Lamarr comes here. Well, watch this video and find out why she decided to kiss any men for $25,000.